Hey, welcome to Scry-fi again. We're here talking about episode 8 of Strange New Worlds. What was this one called again? It should have been The Butcher of Chakol, but Under the Cloak of War?
Right. It would have been, of course, this is all spoilers, so make sure you've seen the episode,
right.
But once you find out who the Butcher of Chakol is, it would have been really cool if that was the name of the episode, because the whole time you would be thinking it was named after the Klingon, so...
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way it's worded, though, it makes it sound like this guy right here, the Klingon in question, it makes it, what was his name, Dakra or Ra or General Ra or Dakra?
General Ra, I think.
Yeah.
Ambassador
makes
Ra.
it sounded like maybe he's a spy or something like that, and Ortega even kind of brings that up early on, or Ortega brings it up early on, but they didn't really play with that much, right? He really was a sincere, at this point, like trying for peace kind of person. But
well, maybe. I mean, he seemed like he did want to do that, but was it just to make himself feel? Like he said at the end, I mean, we're skipping ahead, but he said at the end that that he was ashamed for leaving, not ashamed for the atrocities. He was ashamed for leaving out of there, and his people got killed. As
a Klingon, he fled, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Not supposed to do that as a Klingon.
That's why they probably made him an ambassador, because it's like a shameful thing. He got removed for being a warrior.
Yeah, I imagine he is considered dishonored and all that stuff amongst Klingons.
And maybe it was kind of genuine when he was saying, "Oh, Klingons are no good," something or another. Maybe he feels that way because they
I'm sure he feels
rejected him
and stuff. Yeah, so heartfelt. So yeah, I mean, he shows up on the Enterprise. I like the little whistle, the boatsman whistle.
I think they've shown it before. I mean, I know they've shown that whistle many times, but I think they've shown the actual whistle itself.
I don't think they've ever explained it or anything. So it was nice of them to say something about it, just for fun. Yeah, I've known about it, but yeah.
So we were talking about how they've been doing these lighthearted, funny episodes, and I thought it was building up to something more dramatic. So they really went 180 degrees this time.
Yeah. When I first saw you before the recording, you were like, "That one was hilarious."
There wasn't much singing in it, though. I thought it was going to be the musical.
Oh, he's the Butcher of Chakol. The doctor had him singing in the end.
It was cool, though. Very, very dramatic.
Yeah, it's going to be another hard pivot to.
I know. Now they're going to go to the music, and then probably back to dramatic again for the last one. I think there's only 2 left. Right?
That's crazy. It's really weird pacing, but yeah. Unfortunately, there's only 2 left. I liked Ortega's part in this, but I wish there was more to it. Like, I kind of felt like her little part of the story didn't get to be told,
Yeah. They're doing a lot with her and the Gorn stuff, though, so it made sense to kind of fill in more with Nurse Chapel and
well, Lahan is the one that has the whole Gorn stuff. Like, I don't know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, she was hardly in this at all.
Okay. I mean, she had that moment where she was upset about the dinner and all that stuff. She had her moments, but
yeah.
And she's the one that gets to tell us about the Butcher of Chakol, right?
Right. So yeah, you're right. It would have been cool to see a little bit of her experience there, but I guess she was off fighting in another part of the moon.
Yeah, this is the part where he tells Spock that the Klingons are stupid, blah 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 and all, and it makes everybody kind of like, that's really weird.
See, it makes me think that he's just telling people what they want to hear, what he thinks they want to hear, to get them to trust him.
I think he's convinced himself that the Klingons are stupid because they hate him and he can't go back and all that stuff. He's like,
yeah, I don't know.
I actually think he's sincere throughout this entire thing, other than the fact that he's lying about killing his own men. And
I think he is, but I think it's also a very convenient way to kind of Like he is not interested whatsoever in facing up to anything he did wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely that. And I don't think that he particularly thinks he did much wrong other than running in disgrace, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This little part where he burns his hand on the Raktajino
Mm.
was kind of interesting because he growls a little bit and then like controls himself real quick.
Yeah, you can tell he's really trying hard to be the way he's being. Like I remember that episode in TNG where Worf's brother comes on. Before you know it's Worf's brother, you just think he's
Curve, yeah.
somebody here to kind of blend in. It's cultural exchange, and he's being fairly normal with everybody, maybe even a little curt. But then when it comes to Worf, he's like, "Very good, Mister Worf," and he's like being very kind and all. And Worf eventually gets mad because to a Klingon, that's like very condescending kind of stuff. He was doing that on purpose because he wanted to see what Worf
Yeah.
was like. And so that was a really cool part, but it also just shows how hard it must be for a Klingon to be like he's being here, because it's like almost offensive to be so kind and polite.
Right. Then, of course, Benga sees him and has a panic attack.
Oh, I gotta say, I don't know the actor's name that plays Mbinga. Do you?
Yeah. Babs. That's a. He has a really long last name that I
Okay.
pronounce, but
Well, spell it.
Olusanmokun.
Okay.
So I would definitely butcher it. And
Yeah.
because
Um,
this actor is amazing.
I know that's what I was going to bring up. I mean, he is incredible in this. The tension he shows kind of reminds me of when Bill Burr was in The Mandalorian, and you can see the tension swelling in his face and stuff. That was a surprising good acting job there too. But I mean, Bill Burr's not normally an actor.
Right.
This person is, and boy, what a great job he's doing as Dr. Mbinga. I just love this character. Love watching him. He's mesmerizing to see his performance. It's just really intense, really good.
Well, I also think Nurse Chapel, played by Jess Bush,
She's doing better and better all the time. I think she's turning out to be one of the highlights of the show.
Her performance in this whole episode was amazing as well.
Yeah, she's had a number of really good performances.
Let's just go. I thought it was interesting to see all these blasts coming from up and down, and it also made me think, like, you know, in Star Wars and in Star Trek, there's always they have these ground battles during wars and stuff. In a space world, you have to somehow, like, what stops the ships from just bombarding from space? And now it's over, you know. Like,
well, probably controlling the orbital space above the battlefield is part of the issue. What's going on? I don't know.
It seems weird because why fight the ground war if even if you win, all it takes is for the win up in the space, and then they just, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I know in Star Wars the technology is a little different how it works, but they have these big ray shields that you can walk through, that physical things go through, but you can't bombard through. Yeah. Like if it's real fast or if it's high energy, including high kinetic energy, it won't go through the shield. So then you got to land ground troops and then walk in to assault the base. It's kind of a cool excuse that gets around the very question you're bringing up. For Star Trek,
I don't know what it is here, though.
Yeah, for Star Trek, I mean, I imagine you could have shields and stuff, but yeah, I don't know.
But they beam her down and stuff. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, you could think about it as far as like island war, right? Like you'd have to control the seas around the islands and all that stuff as well. And I know there were, you know, battles on islands and stuff during like World War II, and so it's probably something similar to that, but it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they had anti like defenses for any incoming torpedoes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't keep troops from running up to it, you know.
Sure. Love seeing this guy again.
This is
Clint
Opie
Howard.
Cunningham's Clinton Howard. I was going to say Ron Howard's brother,
Well, it
but
is,
he's
yeah.
becoming as well known with all these different parts he's playing. Almost, but
many
Ron
times
Howard,
has he
of
been
course,
in
was
Star Trek?
big time director.
Yeah.
Richie Cunningham, Opie Taylor, goes back a long way, and then his brother was actually in some Star Trek episodes younger too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played the little baby guy. The
Yeah, yeah.
alien, yeah.
That's
The
right.
alien was like a little baby, like
So
that
he
came in there and talked to him.
what was his name?
I can't remember his name then, but
Anyway, it was the one where he pretended to have. He used this puppet alien to. Boy, it was, and it had a bluff. Oh, the Corbomite maneuver. That's the name of the episode.
that's the episode. Yeah.
So he was in that, but then he was also in some other stuff too.
Baylock was his name.
Baylock was the little It's a grown alien, but played by a little kid because that's how they look. And then, but I could have swore he was in some other Star Trek episodes along the years in between.
Yeah, I think he was in a Next Generation one, but I'm not sure.
Huh. Cool.
But yeah, always fun to see him. He did a good job. It was very quick kind of stuff. He only had a few lines, right? But
yeah,
he was fun.
I liked their little MASH unit area that they were working in. It was neat to see that kind of thing. I don't think it was called MASH unit, but it's basically that MASH unit.
Right. Yeah, the I was just looking to see if he was in he was in Deep Space Nine. He played a man named Grady.
Okay. I thought I'd seen him somewhere before.
Yeah.
After he got older.
So yeah, some of these scenes, this guy being held in the buffer was interesting because that's what he's doing with his daughter, right?
Right. Or he was doing with his daughter.
Right.
Or will be if you go from the point of view of this flashback. No,
he still is, isn't he?
Gone, isn't she? She went to live with those alien creatures.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that. Yeah, that was last season.
So he was doing that, but what's interesting to talk about with that is, so it's not being held in a buffer for some period of time, because he had to bring the daughter out ever so often because he couldn't keep her in there for a long time. The thing that Scotty did when he pulled off his little thing is figuring out how to keep it going for years at a time without having to bring the person out.
That was Relics, right? The episode Relic in Next Generation. Yeah.
Right. So, because normally, as far as anybody knows, the pattern would eventually degrade if you didn't do that.
Right. Yeah, this was interesting for him to say. You're going to have to get your hands in there and pump the heart and all that stuff.
I figured that kid was going to die. I kind of guessed it because they create this person that they care about a lot that they saved, and then to have them die is the thing that
both of them, everybody they end up working on ends up dead, right?
Yeah, that's
the bad part. And this is what I was talking about right before the dinner. She's about to walk away, and Benga gets her back.
Yeah,
it was interesting. She even kind of started. I can talk to this guy a little bit.
Certain topics until certain things came up. Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see the characters that weren't in the war, or at least weren't on the ground or something like that, that had had no issues talking to him and all that stuff. It was an interesting combination. And I couldn't quite place where Una, number one, where she laid, because she seemed very... she had some animosity to her, but she also, whenever she spoke, she was like, those that were in the war, blah, blah, blah. She didn't seem like she was talking about herself.
Well, she's a higher ranking officer, so you expect her to be better at, maintaining all this stuff.
Maybe. I couldn't tell if she was in the war or not. Or maybe if she was, it was more starship duty, not blood and guts.
Starship battles, if you don't have a ship that becomes incredibly damaged,
right,
could be, less personal than up close with a knife.
Yeah. Notice how fast this guy recovered. That's the miracle.
Well, they didn't have organ regenerators, but they probably had other kinds of smaller, high-tech stuff and better medicines. And
this guy was cool.
I really liked the way he looked. Really cool looking dude. There's not, they make. I mentioned something about action figures a few episodes ago, and they do make action figures of Star Trek, but I don't think Star Trek normally lends itself to great action figures because they're all wearing the same clothes. It's just not as exciting as the Star Wars action figures. But that's one dude that would make a great action figure.
He would, yeah.
He looks cool.
Well, they had cool outfits and all that stuff too. The little lights on the top for whenever they're fighting and stuff is cool. I noticed he has like the scar going across and his eyes messed up. Like, could they not repair that? Or
well, I'm just thinking he doesn't have time because he got time to bleed. He's doing his
bleed.
He's fighting. Maybe later it'll be taken care of.
Remember, the Andorians are also kind of a warlike race, right?
Yeah, I thought about that.
So maybe they, like the Klingons, like their scars and stuff like that.
Maybe, but I'm guessing he would eventually want to get the eye fixed. Of course,
Martog didn't. Martog could have, from Deep Space Nine, General Martog could have had a fake eye or whatever and stuff. But
another thing too about those suits is like, obviously there's armor there and stuff, helps against phaser blasts, I'm sure, but it could also have some sort of like stuff in there to dampen life signals, like being scanned. It could be like a stealth special forces suit or something. It's fun to think about that.
This whole time, I felt like Captain Pike, he was really out of his element. Like, he just didn't understand right and stuff. But this one moment during the dinner, whenever both Ortegas and Chapel leave, and he sees like the tension and the doctor's
says,
arm,
maybe you better go check on them.
Yeah. At one time, I was like, okay, good call. Finally, a little good call here. Like,
yeah, I mean, Pike was doing fine. One thing I like that they had him mention is that there was a specific order that people who were involved in that battle that Starfleet wanted them to meet with him. You remember him saying that in the sick bay?
Yeah.
He said, like, they specifically want y'all to go and meet with them for diplomatic purposes or whatever. Because otherwise, if they hadn't had that scene, you'd be thinking, man, Pike, why didn't you just leave them out of the dinner? Make it go easy on yourself, not have this inevitable thing. So I'm glad the writers thought to put that little excuse in there.
It's really weird though. Like, it's like this ship needs a counselor, right? This is before they start putting counselors on the ship. This is why.
Yeah.
And then of course,
that guy did a good acting job too. Yeah. The young guy there.
Yeah, the
young that was.
What I really liked his kind of story, where he's upset and he's like, I joined Starfleet to be an explorer and all this stuff. And then in this scene where he's all geared up, he's like, I'm a soldier. I do what I'm told. And he moves on.
He's like kind of psyched himself up and to get back into the thing. And he doesn't want to be held back or anything at that point.
Yeah, there's a little Spock and Chapel drama here.
Yeah. They're keeping their stuff going on.
Spock doesn't understand the intricacies of what's going on and all and stuff. Makes it about him. That's reasonable to assume, but I like that it's kind of just in the background, kind of going on for a little bit. I'm sure it's going to come to a head soon, but
it's a little thread stitch.
I thought this was interesting. That
they had to lose the person they put in the buffer. Yeah.
And then Bega's the one that does it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
they had crazy. Several more to beam in.
It's interesting that it's org 33021010. Like, I wonder, is that just a file name that gets generated
a file name?
Yeah.
I'm sure org means organic. biodata.
But it seems like if you have that information on file, wouldn't it be better to have the computer put the name on there? Because then it'd be easy to see who's in the buffer and all that stuff.
Well, they'd probably have to say the name of this file is, you know what I mean? Maybe long term they could have done that, but
I guess.
also, I mean, how's the transporter going to know what people's names are?
I mean, whenever you transport for the first time, you just put in your transporter data.
Oh, like they would recognize your patterns.
Yeah, because what happens if you're in an investigation and you go, "Oh, who transported down?" You just look and you just see this. You're like, "Oh, somebody."
I'm sure they could match that up to their record. And
Well, if they can match it up to the record, then the computer can do it and put the little guy's name there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's probably not that important normally, because normally you're just beaming and there it is. And then
but it'd be nice to see the names come up. But if they do that, then there's so many times where you don't get the beam somebody up and then the dun dun dun.
Oh no, we accidentally beamed up Abraham Lincoln. Okay.
I didn't know Sarek was on board, stuff like that. It'd be just like, oh, Sarek's coming, So I guess.
But also, it's important to note that there's no data file that has all the information of a person.
True.
They have like DNA. They have the DNA information, but they don't have like
where your
full scan of all that stuff. That's what the pattern buffer is doing. It's just keeping the material of the body in a stream.
Right.
It's kind of a chain reaction effect thing, so that it never has to be stored anywhere. Almost like procedural generation in a computer game.
Now, this scene was really cool. And I really wondered why he said yes to this like wrestling match thing.
I think he wanted to fight him. And he wants to know more about him. He thinks he's not on the up and up with what he's saying. So
he knows he's not on the up and up. Because in this scene, it's where he asked him, "Did you really kill your men?"
Yeah, I think he's curious about these questions, for one thing.
Yeah. But he's like, which one fought the hardest and all that stuff. And that's where he sees him taking credit and saying that he did it to save the people. And he knows he's lying.
Yeah. In retrospect, we now know what he was getting at here. Yeah.
That's what made him get angry like that. Yeah. Man, doing that against a Klingon, like fighting that kind of thing, was really tough.
Well, the Klingon was beating him at almost every turn, but
need some of that juice, that Protocol 12, I think he called it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I thought he was going to give some to the kid before, when he was trying to stop the kid from going, and he was saying, no, don't. And he goes, oh, I got to go. And he goes, okay, here, take this. And he gives him the stuff to help him. And then it turns out that it's too much for his heart because they just worked on the heart and everything. And then the kid dies from that.
Well, he certainly died.
Yeah, that would have been a neat little thing, but they had too much going on. That would have had to have been the thing of the episode.
Right. I like that he asks him twice, nearly begging him to leave.
Leave me alone, because it's taking everything he can not to, kill him or attack him and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why here's the most interesting part of the episode, of course, is this climactic moment and what it means and who really knows what and who thinks what. Yeah. First, why don't we talk about Chapel? Because there's a question about her. She comes in, she sees the blurry.
I thought that too at first, but what I realized was this scene right here, she's in there. She's on the left.
No, this is what she's seeing.
It's not what she's seeing. This is what we're seeing. When it shows her come in, I don't have the picture of it, but I saw it right before this. When she comes in, she turns to the left and you can see them wrestling in full view. She sees everything.
Really?
Now, then the camera comes to here so that we don't see exactly what happens.
Oh, I thought she saw it through
the first time I watched this through, I thought the same thing too. But when she comes in, I can't find a picture right now, but when she comes in, she's really close to them. It's almost like she's right behind this section right here.
Okay. Well, in any case, she still doesn't. I mean, they're holding each other like this, and then she sees him stab him, obviously, but she doesn't know what happened before that, and she doesn't know the conversation before that. So
Right.
it's possible she really doesn't. It's possible she thought that he had that knife, that the ambassador had the knife, and that the ambassador started it, and
No way.
Mbinga got the knife away from him and finished it.
This very next scene, she's lying. She says, "I saw the whole thing,"
Mm-hmm.
and she says that Mbinga told him to leave, and he did this, and like she is repeating a lie.
Well, she's repeating his lie, and it's certainly true that she's lying about what she saw, but it could be that she really believes him and thinks this is what happened, so I'm going to lend into the story by just saying that I saw it too.
I think she knew that he was the butcher of Chagall. She knew that he left. She knew that he was going.
Because she also knew that he
Yeah.
left, but she doesn't know exactly what he. I think they kept it kind of blurry, like exactly what she knows and doesn't know. I think she suspects and doesn't want to know more, and is willing to go with his story no matter what. Anyway,
when this thing is like saying, DNA, this and this, she goes, "There you go, the butcher of Chagall, his blade." Like when she says that, she knows.
You think she's technically saying something that's true, but by butcher of Chagall, she knows she's talking about Mbinga. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's what we know. She's saying also because this, of
whenever she sees him about to leave to go kill all these guys and stuff, she sees this very blade on his belt. It makes a point to show it on his belt, and she looks right at it. And then
yeah. She probably then, but I don't know that she really saw everything though. I think she assumes that's what's happening, but then she's still willing to go with his story. Even though she knows that the story probably isn't.
I think if she walked in and just saw Mbinga just like walk up to the guy and stab him, she'd cover for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying that she didn't actually see that. So even if she thinks she knows that Mbinga did it all, she doesn't really know that. She just assumes that's what happened based on what she saw.
Yeah.
And she's right. It's like, and then of course she is lying when she says, "I saw the whole thing," and the opposite happened.
Right.
But
and then of course Pike knowing.
But here's another thing too that's really interesting. I think it's possible that Mbinga might actually believe he's telling the truth when he says he started it. He told the guy, leave me alone," and the guy puts his hands on him and he's like, "Leave me alone," and then I had to kill him. I think he's still he could convince himself that guy wouldn't stop. He wouldn't leave me alone, and I had to kill him.
Maybe.
I think he could kind of rationalize some parts of it like that.
He walked over to that knife.
Yeah, he was getting ready to get it because he knew if that guy didn't leave me alone, I'm going to kill him. But he still might count all that stuff of not leaving when he told him to. He might count that as him starting it,
Sure, but that's not what that Klingon wanted. He did not want to fight Mbinga. He was pleading with them to work with him. So,
and Mbinga knew that too, for sure. But he didn't necessarily care or think that mattered, what he wanted. What matters is what he was doing, and he told him to stop doing it, and he wouldn't stop doing it. So therefore, he started the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine many real-life scenarios in which people who were evil to another group of people or something, or war criminals and stuff like that, were in those positions, and you'd be like, yeah, you're totally on Mbinga's side. So it's really weird to see someone basically get away with murder on Star Trek. Mm-hmm. But it's really fascinating, and I think it's going to eat them alive. And I think that's what they were saying. I think it's going to come back and haunt them, basically, because I think that's what the whole the bed number 2 bed breaking will always break again kind of thing that he says at the end.
Oh, because they're laying down a forewarning that some more stuff's going to go
When
wrong.
something's broken, it always continue. That kind
I
of
think
thing.
you're right. I think that's
I think it's
probably
not.
going to be the case, and it might lend into, because I've been wondering, like, how do we go from this to one day under Kirk's command, McCoy is the chief medical officer, and he's still serving on the ship, but he's not the chief medical officer. And one way that could happen is if something happens where he takes a leave of absence or goes away for a while or transfers somewhere and then comes back, but McCoy's already the chief, so he comes back and he serves without being the chief medical officer. That would explain that a lot, because he can't. If he's there, there'd be no reason for them to just say, "Get out of the way." Now McCoy's going to be chief.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's this was a fascinating scene too between Pike and him, because Pike, I think, knows too, right? Like he suspects at least. And then whenever they're talking, he's kind of like, hypothetically, if he killed children, wouldn't it be okay if I, actually started it?
And he says, "Well, that's why we have tribunals and stuff." And then when he said something like, "I don't believe necessarily everything that," what was that last thing he said to him?
Who, Pike?
What was the last thing M'Benga said to Pike? It was something like,
well, he said that you haven't lived my life. He said we agree on almost everything, but you haven't lived my life, kind of thing.
The last thing he said though was like, even though I didn't do it, I'm happy he's dead.
Yeah.
And Pike just left after that. There's nothing more to say. So I think you're right though. They're setting up some longer hard arc for him.
He's trying to be, like, earnestly trying to be a doctor who saves lives, and now he committed murder in the same room in which he's supposed to be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to cause conflict. I think it's going to create issues with him, and of course he's still suffering from PTSD. So I mean, it's weird that I know that originally Roddenberry wanted people to be like mentally at a level in the future to where they didn't suffer these kinds of issues. They didn't,
Well, not just because of that, but because science and stuff would be better at like identifying PTSD and treating it and all that. And it probably is, but M'Benga is skilled at knowing how those tests work, and he would be able to hide it from being detected,
I guess so, but the other crew are still obviously affected by it. Not that they wouldn't be affected by it, but so it's interesting. But I can remember a lot of times in the original series where people just went nuts and stuff, remember the Doomsday Machine? What's his name? Commodore Deckard.
Of course, that was a situation that had just happened. You didn't have any time for treatment. He literally beamed over and then did all kinds of crazy stuff right away. So
there were crazy people in the future still and stuff. But
there was that dude who held a grudge for years and then pulled some kind of scheme where he pretended to be killed by Kirk's incompetence, and then they find out he's still alive.
Right. Yeah. So there's still issues. There
was still drama that could happen.
Yeah. So, which I'm glad for, because you get, grade A awesome writing and acting and stuff from these kind of shows. Hard turn 180 from the comedic cartoon one before this. And then we're going to jump into a musical, and then maybe back towards the Gorn battle fight war thing. It's a roller coaster.
And I think too that when M'Benga was saying, "You haven't lived my life, you don't know my experience, you have the privilege of talking about these principles and stuff because you didn't live through this," I think that was a more general message too about talking about ideals, but you haven't been through the thing that the ideal is opposed to.
Right. Yeah. So another great episode in a totally different way. right?
Yeah, yeah. This was good Star Trek. It's kind of like this episode had a tone similar to that I hadn't seen since Deep Space Nine,
Yeah.
with some of those moral things going on during the war.
Yeah, it reminds me of remember the episode where Nog loses his leg in the Deep
Mm-hmm.
Space Nine one, right? They're under siege by the Jem'Hadar and all that stuff. Everybody was war weary. It was really interesting, and they even spent an entire episode after that, a couple episodes later, with Nog dealing with that.
Yeah, what a cool arc that Nog went through.
Yeah.
And who would have guessed that Nog would have ended up being such a cool character early on in the show? Just seemed like goofy comic relief or something.
Right. Yeah. So, this is a thing that Star Trek has done before in the past. And some of that in Deep Space Nine is what makes it it's some people's favorite series, is because of stuff like that. So I'm sure those people that feel that way are going to love this episode as well.
Yeah. And the war thing too, I was thinking about how if you were to watch this in chronological order, then when it gets to the original series episode Errand of Mercy with the Organians,
right?
That episode begins. They had already previously. Oh, actually, that was the first episode with Klingons in it, right? So, yeah. So the very first episode with Klingons, you hear there had been this war in the past, and now we're going to go to war again. And the alerts go off, and they say, "Oh, fleets are assembling. We're going to," and so it doesn't have near the impact that it should in context. Of like, oh man, we've been at peace this whole time, and now there's going to be another war with the Klingons. Now they're making the previous war sink in more. And so now if you were to watch this all in order, when that moment comes at the beginning when they're like, oh, going to war with the Klingons, it would be so much more meaningful because you'd have the context of the history and everything. And then you go down and you get the episode Errand of Mercy with these beings interjected, so that it would be interesting to watch someone see all of those things in chronological
order. Yeah. We talked about this, maybe not last episode, but the episode before, where sometimes doing prequels and stuff like that elevates what was there before if they do it right.
It gives it even more backdrop and meaning than it had before.
Yeah. Almost makes me wonder if 20 years from now, there's going to be a show that happens right before Avengers or something like that, and it elevates moments in that in a different way. And you can do this. You can do this if
young Tony Stark.
Right. Yeah. If you
you could
just right, you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're already kind of done that a little bit too with Kirk. I mentioned a couple of episodes ago when they had Kirk talking about how he felt like him and the family were second fiddle to their dad in Starfleet, like they were just being drug around and everything, and now it makes perfect sense why Kirk never wanted a family.
Right. Yeah. With David and everything like that, he was like, I wanted him in my world, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
They're doing a great job.
I should also mention too. I meant to mention that we should talk about. They're not shying away from the Klingon look. Okay, so when they showed previously or whatever at the beginning of the episode, some of the flashbacks they showed were from Discovery when it showed the Klingon War, and you saw some of the funky looking Klingons that everybody hated, right? And so they show that, and then they show this guy. He looks like a Klingon's supposed to look, but they've gone back to. So it's not like they're disowning those scenes. Those scenes happen, and that's what the way those Klingons look. So there's something about that group of Klingons that came from the deep, right? I don't remember the details, but this group had come back from being gone for a long time. This particular group of Klingons that started the war, and they had this crypt ship with dead bodies inside, and it was a special little thing going on with them. So maybe they're trying to say now that, in retrospect, they're trying to say that this was some special offshoot that maybe they bred with people they had conquered or something, and
or this is the
it's the Klingons' inbred cousins, you know.
well, I mean, we have, if you were look at different humans, we have different looking humans, right? So
Yeah, but that's really different.
I mean, it's very different.
Looks like more than a species. But some people brought up that idea before that the Klingons, you know, conquer many worlds. So what if they had interjected or bred, or what if they had altered their DNA to be more warlike? And that was just that clan did that. You know?
Yeah, I think
That's the best you can do.
Yeah, in the tradition of sci-fi, we're all okay, kind of just that happened and just
Yeah.
about it.
I mean, we would prefer that they had not tried to change the Klingon look and everybody hated it, and then they.
Sure.
But I'm glad they went back. So now we just have this thing, and you can come up with some sci-fi explanations for it. That's fine.
Right. Yeah.
I'd rather have to do that than have them keep the Klingons looking weird like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad they went back to it. Yeah. Another great episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really good. I wish there were more than 10 episodes.
I know, 10. That's not enough. I need more. Like I've been rewatching. I've watched them twice before our shows here, just to get more detail and things like that. And right after this 10, I'll be happy to rewatch the whole series again.
Yeah,
So,
that's how I was with Mandalorian. I watched all those multiple times.
all right. Well, thanks for watching the show. Tell us what you think about the hard turn that this thing took, the 180 from the different fields. You know,
what did you think about Mbinga's actions and the fact that they included them in Star Trek as a rare type of thing for Star Trek to do?
Yeah,
for a main character.
Is Mbinga in the right? Is he? You know, he kind of said it's okay that he killed him because he knows that he killed children and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of like, what happens if you know? So yeah, it's an interesting moral question. So, which is what Star Trek does well. So.
But it's also interesting that they had a character go that far and be a main character that continues on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you, I guess, after the next singing episode, right?
Is that the next one? I assume it's probably not the. It's probably not going to be the finale. So
I think it's the next one. Yep.
Okay.
So, better get the vocals ready. We'll sing through the whole next episode, right?
No.
Nobody wants to see that.
Nobody wants to see that.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.